Somewhere on a mysterious island, a giant corporation is conducting illegal experiments in its factories. The owner, John, has decided to personally visit the laboratory after a series of failures in creating a biological weapon that human commands can control. Worse still, the government has begun investigating this illegal project, forcing John to decide to destroy all the research immediately. At last, he arrives before his main experiment and quickly reveals that it is a gigantic snake towering over everyone. However, the monster does not recognize humans as its master, forcing John to make his final decision to destroy the very creature he created. The scientists begin using computers to inject poison into the giant beast, while workers outside use flamethrowers to burn masses of other snakes. But to their shock, the injections do not kill the colossal monster. Instead, they somehow make it stronger, sending it roaring madly toward the humans. The giant creature begins awakening the other snakes, driving the swarm into a frenzy as they attempt to break free from the laboratory. This forces everyone to try burning the massive snake to buy time to escape the area. Meanwhile, the snakes in the underground chambers start retaliating, killing people by hurling them into pits. John continues fleeing with 2 of his bodyguards, while ordering soldiers to gun down the researchers to eliminate all witnesses. After committing such horrific crimes, they begin to sense something is wrong when one of the experimental creatures escapes. The beast quickly slaughters all the soldiers, thrashing them around like dolls and tearing them apart in gruesome fashion, while the giant snake also begins to break free. John finally manages to reach the outside, rushing toward the helicopter, while his bodyguards and soldiers stay behind to fight the monsters. Everyone then moves back into the jungle to kill the creatures, unaware that they have become nearly invincible and are rapidly taking over the entire base. Soldiers push deeper into the forest, still trying to wipe out the mutant snakes, but one by one they are quickly killed. Only 2 women remain, forced to defend themselves as the enemy closes in to devour them. Finally, the women fight with knives once their bullets run out, but they are soon attacked by a giant snake, leaving one of them gravely injured. The remaining woman sees her friend about to be killed and charges in, stabbing the monster in the back. Yet the creature is too powerful. It hurls her away with terrifying force. She struggles to her feet, only to find her friend already dead, while the snake seizes her and lifts her into the air. She screams in despair as the beast swallows her whole in a single bite. Suddenly, a few surviving soldiers manage to reach a boat to escape the island, but they are swiftly killed by a snake lurking beneath the water. 1 year later, a cruise ship drifts across the sea, where people are partying endlessly as if there were no tomorrow, completely unaware that the prophecy may be coming true. Worse still, a mysterious figure has led the ship off course and murdered the captain, while the passengers remain utterly oblivious to the horror about to unfold. Very soon, a massive shadow begins to emerge beneath the water, just as people start realizing that countless snakes have already infiltrated the ship, quickly slaughtering the unlucky victims. It turns out the vessel has been surrounded by thousands of snakes rising from the depths of the ocean, swarming aboard to attack and kill the passengers one by one. Chaos erupts as panic spreads, with everyone running frantically to save their lives. At the same time, a passenger named Ty is vacationing with his girlfriend Marley, but they quickly sense something is wrong when they hear terrified screams drawing nearer. Everyone is forced to flee immediately, while other victims collapse and die from venom, as the swarm of snakes spreads into every corner of the ship. Ty rushes into the cafeteria, trying to warn everyone about the danger, but it's already too late. The snakes are pouring inside. Before long, an even larger snake appears, hunting people as though they were prey. Ty flees in the opposite direction with a handful of survivors, only to be attacked by the massive serpent. They have no choice but to sprint into nearby rooms, narrowly escaping its strike. Eventually, they reach the engine room, where the protagonist devises a plan. He notices that the giant snake is blind, so he decides to use the heat and noise of the machinery to disorient it. Before long, the group is cornered, left with nothing but silent prayers that the creature won't notice them. They remain perfectly still, hidden in the shadows, until the snake slowly begins to move away. But suddenly, the ship grinds to a halt and all sound ceases. At the exact moment an alarm clock belonging to one of the girls rings out. The shrill noise immediately draws the monster's attention, forcing everyone to flee once again as the beast gives chase. In a desperate stand, Ty fights back, swinging an axe into the snake's head, while his girlfriend blasts it with a fire extinguisher. The attack inflicts agonizing pain on the serpent, giving the survivors a brief window to escape. But they soon realize the monster will not relent so easily. With no other option, the group barricades itself inside the freezer, hiding from the predator pounding violently outside. They begin to realize they are completely trapped, forced to choose between freezing to death or being devoured by the monstrous snake. To make matters worse, one of the passengers begins bleeding from his nose. Marley quickly realizes he has been poisoned and will die without immediate treatment. This forces Tai to propose a dangerous plan, opening the door to lure the snake away. But their friend Lee refuses to let him sacrifice himself. Before the argument can be resolved, the poisoned man makes his own decision. He charges out the door, drawing the serpent's attention, and yells at the others to run. The rest of the group has no choice but to flee as he slams the door shut behind him, locking the beast inside. At last, the survivors decide that their only hope is to escape these waters, which means somehow restarting the ship. They rush to the control room, only to discover that every captain and officer has already been murdered by human hands, leaving the vessel adrift and unmanned. Luckily, they manage to restart the ship by activating the main engine, allowing them to continue their journey and leave the danger zone. Before long, the passengers discover they are approaching an island, believing they have finally been saved. But suddenly, the ship crashes into something that brings it to a complete stop, something so massive it blocks out the windows entirely. Everyone rushes outside to see what is obstructing their path. The protagonist fires a flare gun into the sky, only to freeze in horror as a towering monster, the size of a skyscraper, looms before them. The creature roars furiously at the tiny humans, sending them into a desperate panic as they scatter to avoid being killed. The survivors quickly decide to abandon the ship. Tai tells everyone to get into the lifeboats, while he runs back to distract the monster. He charges into the engine room, breaking open gas pipes and flooding the area with fuel. At last, the others make it onto the lifeboats, helplessly watching their friend face the beast alone. The giant serpent coils around the vessel, crushing its internal structure. Tai knows his time is up. He fires his flare gun once more, the shot falling onto the deck and triggering a massive explosion that engulfs the entire ship in flames, sinking it instantly. The survivors look on in despair, believing their friend is dead. But miraculously, Tai manages to escape in time and is pulled aboard to safety. By morning, the survivors awaken to find themselves ashore at last. Convinced they are free from the mutant serpents, they venture inland, unaware they are about to encounter an even more horrifying threat. Not long after, the protagonist begins hearing strange noises and senses that something is terribly wrong. He urges the others to leave immediately, but instead they stumble into an area filled with strange rock formations. From the shadows, a massive tentacled monster slowly emerges, seizing one victim and dragging them into its shell. The group quickly realizes they are in grave danger, as the creatures begin devouring humans like a grotesque buffet. Chaos erupts as everyone runs for their lives. But just as the survivors near escape, the monsters abruptly retreat, ignoring the uninjured. Tai realizes that the creatures are drawn to the scent of blood, and they only attack the wounded. This discovery allows the group to withdraw safely and move deeper into the jungle, where they eventually find an abandoned military camp. There, they uncover a signal transmitter and quickly gather the necessary equipment, planning to reach higher ground to send a distress call. The survivors press further into the uncharted wilderness and finally reach a dense jungle. Tai senses something moving in the darkness. Moments later, one of the survivors witnesses a horrifying sight. Before anyone can react, they turn and see him impaled by something enormous, his body lifted lifelessly into the shadows. It turns out they are being attacked by a giant spider, taller than a human, impaling victims like skewers on a grill. The survivors immediately hide behind trees while others try firing their weapons at the monster, but the bullets have no effect. The spider impales another man and hoists him up. However, the man sacrifices himself by pulling out a grenade and detonating it in the creature's face. The explosion gives the others a chance to escape, while the beast retreats from the forest, badly wounded. At last, the survivors decide to keep moving forward and come upon a massive facility that once served as a laboratory. They soon find a way inside, cautiously stepping through the halls, where they discover countless documents on experiments with mutant snakes. Venturing deeper into the underground tunnels, they are shocked to find that the building's power system is still active. The group enters a room and, to their relief, discovers a fully stocked supply depot of food and water, allowing them to survive the night and prepare for rescue. After their first meal in days, they quickly fall asleep, unaware that one person is secretly sneaking away from the group. Tai wakes up and immediately notices someone is missing, prompting him to begin searching right away. He heads back into the lower tunnels, bracing himself for the worst, while the missing member climbs to the second floor and covertly steals research documents from the laboratory. At the same time, Lee also wakes, unaware that his friend is walking straight into danger. Soon, the protagonist finds an exit on the far side, stepping into an area shrouded in thick mist. He hears terrifying noises and strains his eyes ahead, only to realize that the colossal serpent that once attacked them at sea is still alive. The monster charges at him, but Tai is saved just in time by his friend, who opens fire in a desperate attempt to distract it. The beast, however, turns back toward the protagonist, attempting to swallow him whole with its massive jaws. Luckily, Tai dodges at the last moment, but the exit is completely blocked, forcing him to abandon his friend. He returns to the group with grim news, but suddenly the transmitter picks up a strange signal. This allows them to call for rescue, though they all realize there will be no escape as long as the giant snake remains alive to stop them. With no other choice, Tai formulates a final plan to kill the mutant serpent. He instructs everyone to set up a series of traps designed to make the beast bleed as much as possible. His ultimate goal is to lure it toward the cliffs, where it will fall into the lair of the tentacled monsters, letting the creatures finish it off. The next morning, the survivors prepare for the coming battle, hiding silently behind the trees while Tai stands in solemn remembrance of his fallen friend. But suddenly, a suspicious man pulls out a knife and attempts to kill him, only for Tai to counter the attack and hurl him out into the open clearing. Tai confronts the man about his true identity and quickly discovers that he was once a doctor working in this very laboratory. The scientist had escaped the soldier's execution, only to return and sabotage the ship to continue his experiments on the mutated creatures. He believes his work will bring great benefits to humanity, but to Tai, the man is utterly insane. Meanwhile, the other survivors spot the giant serpent and begin luring it toward the spiked traps they had prepared. The monster finally steps into them, suffering heavy wounds, and suddenly appears right behind the doctor. Tai sees the beast and instantly turns to run, leaving the traitor to be devoured by the very creature he helped create. He sprints desperately through the jungle, the giant snake right on his heels. At last, he hurls bottles of blood toward the shoreline, drawing the attention of the tentacled monsters lurking nearby. Tai bolts toward the cliff's edge, and just as the serpent lunges to grab him, he leaps at the last moment, narrowly avoiding the fatal strike. By sheer luck, he manages to cling to a branch and save himself, while the serpent plunges directly into the lair of the tentacled beasts. The creatures quickly sense its wounds and swarm, dragging it down to the ground. They drain the serpent's blood as it screams in agony, before finally collapsing and dying a gruesome death. Some time later, the survivors sit peacefully waiting on the beach. At last, Tai spots a ship approaching in the distance. Smiling with relief and joy, they gaze toward the sunset, ready to embrace their long-awaited rescue.